Second and first course, I got a charcuterie board, 2 roasted beef salads, and a Braun Dodge. Second course, I got a mushroom risotto, grouper, medium rare hanger steak.
I need that souffle for table 24.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks so much for stopping by, and welcome to 86 Straight Dialogue with Restaurant Leaders, where we're talking with chefs, restaurateurs, and consultants about everything related to restaurant culture. I am your host. My name is Adam Stafford. I've been in the restaurant industry for about 15 years. By no means does that make me an expert, just someone that really enjoys talking shop and providing value wherever I can. I look to provide you, the listener, with insight and strategy that you can use in your day-to-day moving forward. I encourage you to check us out on iTunes, Spotify, our YouTube channel, 86 Attrition, as well as our affiliate website, hospitality1to1.com. I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you, and if you like what you hear, I encourage you to subscribe to the show. Again, thanks for stopping by. So today on 86, we're going to be talking about a little bit different kind of recovery. On many of the episodes, we'll talk about recovery of the restaurant industry as a whole, and getting some insight from different guests as to what that process looks like. But today we're going to be talking about recovery from substance abuse, from alcoholism and drug addiction. And anyone that's spent any extended period of time in the restaurant industry knows how prevalent and pervasive alcohol and drug abuse is. And I am actually a recovering alcoholic myself. I've been sober for almost 3 years, and so this is some subject matter that's very important to me. I was fortunate enough to sit down and have a conversation with Chef Gabriel Rucker of two of Portland, Oregon's most successful restaurants, Le Pigeon and Canard, as well as winning several James Beard Awards. Chef Rucker has been very vocal about his sobriety and his efforts to help others that may be struggling with substance abuse issues. And so we had the opportunity to talk with him, and he shared his story as well as some resources he has used to adopt and maintain sobriety. I was a little bit apprehensive about diving into this subject matter this early in the show, but what I hope to do here is, if there are any listeners that tune in that are perhaps still struggling with alcohol or drug issues, to just provide them with a message that there are people out there that have gone through the same thing and have come out successfully on the other side through recovery, and provide some information regarding how to go about pursuing recovery. So, without any further ado, here is Chef Rucker.
I'm a chef that has been really blessed with some notoriety, that people have paid attention to the food that I've done. People want to come and stage in my restaurants and learn. And, I just had a realization that if people look up to what I do and the food that I put on the plate, that I should have people look up to the work that I do in recovery, because I truly think that, as it stands today, that my life is a success story when it comes to recovery. I've been in the business for a little over 20 years now. Mm-hmm. And for 14 of those years, I've been the chef owner of my own restaurant, which I got thrust into at a pretty early age.
How old were you when Le Pigeon opened?
25.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't make a business plan and try and open a restaurant, though. It was a series of unfortunate and fortunate events that put me in a place with a very newly built, cool, hip Portland restaurant that needed somebody to cook in it.
Yeah.
The restaurant I was just working at had closed after a year, and so I got hired on to be just the chef at what we turned into Le Pigeon.
Okay.
It wasn't Le Pigeon originally, and there was about a 3 month like, hey, if this place is not making it, but we got 3 months of money in the bank, so let's see if we'll give. I was the last chance.
Okay. No pressure.
Well, it really wasn't pressure for me because the restaurant that I'd been working at like had this like it was there for a year, and then it just it blew up. It not going to go into it, but very public blow up of like the restaurant group. And I was playing with house money, the job that didn't have it was like all of a sudden this young kid was like, sure, I will be the chef of this 35-seat restaurant. Yeah, I got nothing else to lose. My girlfriend at the time told me it was a horrible decision and I shouldn't do it. I just went for it and just was like, what I knew I do, cook food, and I just cooked the food that I'd never had a menu before.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally went in one day, looked at the food that was left over, because the chef was it was like a one day like ships passing in the night,
Yeah.
like she was there and then she wasn't, and I just had I had to go through, and there's no money to buy stuff, so I had to go through and look at what we had in the refrigerator and on the shelves and make up a menu and then just open and start cooking. And it was like just a couple friends and family came those first couple nights, but after a little bit of time, people started paying attention to what we were doing and word started getting out, and we made it past that 3-month mark, and then some national media was like, hey, Portland's cool, and that was right around the time, the first couple of years of Le Pigeon. It was like when Portland was like, wow, this is a food city, there's stuff happening here. And so it really worked in conjunction with me coming up at Le Pigeon. Now, onto the sobriety aspect of that. So
Yeah.
you throw a 25-year-old kid who has a penchant for addiction,
Mm-hmm.
who learned, about 5 years prior to that situation, that alcohol was a great coping mechanism for the stresses of the restaurant industry. And you throw that kid into all of a sudden this mentality of people think he's hip and they're writing about him, and you got this little restaurant that you're keeping going, and it's right on this cool little strip with these bars. That's like throwing gasoline on an addict fire.
Yeah.
And so I was already drinking at work, and I had really, like, maybe a year or two prior to Le Pigeon opening up, kind of really gotten into cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
And the cocaine was always the like the drinking during work was the like maintenance drinking, and then it was like, then you get off of work and you want to party, so then you need the cocaine so that you can do the party drinking. Very vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And it was a cycle that I went through for a long time. And my wife and I have talked about it. We got in a relationship and got married in 2009. So Le Pigeon was not even that old by the time that we were in a relationship, but it's just a real vicious cycle,
Mm-hmm.
of the drinking and the drugs, and then it goes back and you do it again, and it was at that point, it was kind of what I was doing was not normal, but what I was doing was like, I'm not when I would get drunk or when I would use, it didn't cause me to be mean or like, my ego didn't inflate. I just became, as my wife said, she's like, it kind of sucked because you just became really more fun and you were holding it together, So she's like, it's really hard for me to be like, hey, you got a problem because all the bills are paid. You keep winning awards for your work. You never sleep past your alarm. You're taking care of shit, but you're also, at the same time, I'm watching, like, you're clearly a mess, but you're also this like mess that somehow manages to hold it together.
Sure.
So, my family had a couple like interventions that didn't really work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, we talk about having kids. Like one of my biggest regrets in life is that I didn't get sober when I had my first child.
Yeah.
And it really, I think that really highlights the addict behavior. Like, it took me until my second child was born to realize that my attitude, my act had to change. And that is like a normal person just doesn't like do cocaine in their kid's bedroom on Thanksgiving.
Right.
It's just not normal behavior.
Yeah.
And it took me, an extra like 2.5 years after having my first child born to to realize that I needed to make a change.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about recovery is that, we can't take back what we did when we were using, and we can't, there is shame when you look back on, like I haven't thought about doing cocaine in my kid's room on Thanksgiving in a lot of years.
Yeah.
But do I need to look back on that moment, which I'm obviously going to carry through my day? Do I need to look back on that moment and have it cause a shame spiral and put me in a bad place? Maybe if I'm not actively in recovery, that's what happened.
Yeah.
But since I work a program, a 12-step program, I have a sponsor, I have people I talk to, I work with other alcoholics, I work the steps. Today, I'm going to use that memory as a memory and a feeling for growth.
Sure.
Because I was there, I was that person. I'm not today. I'm not going to take away from the fact that I was that person, because that was a growing experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I'm not doing that. Today, it's 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. I worked last night. My wife and children are out of town, and I'm thinking about how I can be useful and how many chores I can do before I go to work.
Yeah.
How can I, when my wife went to leave the house for a weekend, it was, how can I scheme on getting vodka, cocaine, and be as big of a shitball as I can?
Right.
And today it's like, well, how much time do I have to do stuff so that I make it really nice when they get back?
Right. Really. Yeah, I can, I can relate to that story a lot. As I said, my daughter was probably about 7 months old when I got sober. And it was after just a pretty prolonged series of, just jackpots, you know what I mean, of varying severity. One of those included a pretty bad car accident. I didn't get seriously injured somehow. I don't really know how, but I sideswiped a telephone pole in a blackout. I don't remember it at all. I came to after it had happened and the police were pulling up behind me. And then, for several months after that was shortly before she was born. And then for several months after that, I just continued to try to maintain this alcoholic lifestyle and addict lifestyle and try to hide it as much as possible. And it's interesting to me when I look back and I kind of realize how much not only do you become just completely reliant on alcohol to function mentally, but shame and stress end up taking up such big parts of that too. And it's like just going back to this well over and over again. And in that well is, booze and drugs and shame and stress. It's like you just can't get enough of it. As soon as you're getting a little bit of it, into your mind, the next thing you're just feeding it more and more. And so finally, when she was about 7 months old, it became abundantly clear to me that, if I wanted to maintain any kind of presence in her life, I had to be sober. It was either, and at that point for me, it was either, okay, I'm going to get sober or I'm going to end it, because I can't be the dad that I want to be. I can't be the husband or the human being that I want to be if I continue to drink and take drugs.
Yeah.
And that's really what it came down to for me. The approximate year that followed, the first year, it was it was really, really hard all the time. Thankfully, I had a sponsor as well, the same guy I still have to this day. He and I don't talk near as often as we did at that point, but I had a sponsor at the time. And when I look back on that time, one of the things that baffles me now is the fact that I had no idea how to go about pursuing sobriety. I just didn't know how to do it. I wanted it, but I just didn't know how to go seek it out.
Yeah.
did you run into any of the same thing?
Well, so I grew up with recovery in my household.
Okay.
My dad got sober when I was 9 years old, and I still vividly remember the moment that he took me on a drive and told me that he, had a problem with drugs and that was getting sober. And then my mom did some recovery-related stuff, not as a family member of an alcoholic. I don't think it was Al-Anon. It was like something else, but so like I remember there was like daily meditations and stuff like that in my household. So I did know I had a blueprint. I had somebody that I trusted, being my dad, who was luckily in Portland and who could take me to my first meeting. And so that is a true blessing. And I've talked about that moment a lot, but just now is it dawning on me like how absolutely lucky I am to have had that. I guess you could say that like it's incredibly hard to walk into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous or any recovery program and to take that first, like, pardon the pun, first step.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're so scared. And what's going through your head is like, you're literally thinking like, when you walk in there, you're literally thinking like, how am I going to be able to work this system so that it's not forever? Because I can't fathom not thinking forever. So there's gotta be a way. There's gotta be a way that I can do this, but still, I'm too good. I could not drink for 6 months maybe, then I'll get over it,
Yeah.
That turns out that's not the case. So I'm incredibly blessed that I had that role model, and I think that I try and carry that over in the service industry. And I was blessed with the opportunity to start a Ben's Friends group in Portland, Oregon. And Ben's Friends, if for those of you that don't know what it is, it follows kind of the template of AA a little bit. What we are is we're a group of sober food and beverage professionals, not just chefs, baristas. We have winemakers. And we meet and we share just like you would in an AA meeting. But what we get each other's backs, it's for people that are in the food service business, and we understand each other, and there's a language. And, let's be honest, our industry runs rampant with addiction, and there's so many problems in our business, and stress and fire and really hectic environments, not to mention an industry that has just absolutely condoned alcoholic behavior and use for a long time. And so by having Ben's Friends and being, for me, being very publicly sober, I want to be that person that makes you feel comfortable checking sobriety out. I didn't think that I could. So, but I had a realization probably about 2 or 3 years ago, probably 2 or so, that I kind of, I have this platform, I have this voice, people are paying attention to what I do.
That was a huge thing for me, being newly sober and still very much in this environment where, the people around me, my coworkers, they're living their lives, and either they have issues with alcohol and drugs or they don't. That's not really necessarily my place to say, but they were living their lives and they continued to do the things that they were doing, the same things that I was doing before I got sober. And then, it was not even 2 or 3 months before that I had been sober when I started coming across different articles where you were coming out and talking about it publicly, and doing these is it no proof? Is that what it's called? The dinners and stuff? Yeah. Starting to read about those, and so that was like, from my end, it was like, okay, well, this guy, this guy's a certified badass, and he's doing it. So if he can do it, then that means you got a shot, as far as maintaining it goes. That was just such a huge thing for me to read about that, and know that was going on at the time for you, and seeing how you were able to maintain it in like a situation that was not easy to do. When I was in, the spot I was in at that point, I didn't have any ownership in the restaurant I was working at, but I was the chef de cuisine there. So I was there, know, 70, 80 hours a week. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, it's like you can say nothing or you can say something. If you have something that you think is going to inspire people or be positive, give it a shot. Right now I think we need to find positivity. We need to find a voice. And there's in Portland, Oregon, there's a lot of stuff coming out now about like abuse in kitchens and just essentially bad behavior in restaurants.
Yeah.
Really bad behavior in restaurants. And am I perfect? No, because if the expectation of perfection is this, then you are guaranteed failure, because as human nature, should not hold ourselves to the ideal of perfectionism. That is, that's for like Instagram and like Kardashians. But what I have accomplished is a steady trajectory of growth and how to nurture and be compassionate. I can't be everything to everyone, but what I can do now in recovery is walk in and be as much as I can to as many as I can.
Yeah.
As a leader, as a chef, as a restaurant owner, as somebody who is in recovery, prominently in the public, you can't be everything to everybody. But when I wake up, I think about, how can I be of service? How can I be useful? Right now with the coronavirus pandemic and owning a restaurant, being of service and being useful is trying to safely employ people and give them health insurance.
Yeah.
Make sure that I build a team that can then hopefully build more, so that when unemployment runs out for people, that they have a job to come to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary times right now, but I definitely wouldn't want to be doing it right now, and also trying to do the balancing act of like drinking, using drugs, fatherhood, running a restaurant. It would be a mess. It would not be a successful situation, I can tell you that much.
Yeah. Also struggle with in the first year. I probably gave it too much space in my head looking back, but how do you talk about sobriety, like with your staff? How do you go? Is it something you openly address with them too? And because I definitely, part of the reason I ask is because I've certainly had a few coworkers that have come to me after they found out that I was, active in recovery, and wanted to talk about it and just, kind of begin a conversation. And from my end, I just tried to do my best to say, okay, look, like if you want to check some things out, I'd be happy to accompany you, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that I have taken people to meetings before. Now that we have Ben's friends, it's like people know it's there, and
Yeah.
it's like if people are interested in if people are in the business and they're interested in getting sober, it's like, well, I suggest going to AA, but here's this thing. It's for you. We made this for you,
Right.
So it makes that conversation a little bit easier. It's like, hey, you have a stigma around AA, or you've heard about AA being a cult, or well, here's this way to get sober that's specifically tailored just to you. You work in the restaurant business, you work these long, hard hours, you're around alcohol all the time. There's a thing called a shift drink, all this stuff. You want to go and talk about how difficult it is to navigate sobriety with all of these distractions and these things coming at you all the time. Ben's Friends is for you. And then I just lead by example. Like I said, people know that I don't drink. I have the 0 proof dinners, and just lead by example.
Okay.
And then, if people want to talk about it, then make the time.
Yeah.
It's a very fine line. I feel very hesitant to not just to share, I share my experience, strength, and hope, just like you would if you were like chairing a meeting.
Sure.
And what I always tell people is that the way that I got sober is through Alcoholics Anonymous,
Mm-hmm.
and that worked for me because I think that what Alcoholics Anonymous does is you got to quit drinking on your own, and that helps you. Alcoholics Anonymous is like quitting drink. If you want to use the analogy of like riding a bike, right? When you go into AA, you fucked up your bike. You have no bike.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's demolished, and you never even knew how to ride it.
Yeah.
Going into AA, the part where you learn to stop drinking in Alcoholics Anonymous is like learning to ride a bike with the training wheels on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But then once you start doing the steps and you have a little bit of sobriety under your belt and you work the program and you're talking to alcoholics and you're making amends and you're accepting responsibility for your action, that's when the training wheels come off and you're really riding the bike and you feel the freedom. Okay, that's the freedom of our addiction, where any moment if you veer off the course or whatever, that you could fall on your face and you could wreck that fucking bike again.
Yeah.
Keep pedaling and keep it, and you have the freedom to do anything you want.
Yeah. Well, and like I was, I was thinking about it when I woke up this morning, and I was thinking about it a lot too. And like, I've through sobriety, I've continued to come back to this thought, and really the thought is like wrecking the bike, but it's these days when it's particularly difficult to maintain sobriety because of a number of different things. And I don't know, man, it's crazy because I heard a lot of people say this when I first came into AA and started pursuing sobriety. You continue to hear people say, my worst days sober are still 10 times better than my best days drinking and taking drugs. And I remember very clearly thinking during the first couple of months, I'm like, you guys, there's no way this is accurate. You guys are full of shit. Like, no way can this be the case. And now I've come to very much believe that. Time and time again, I find that to be true. And if I just take a half second to think back on just the 3-ring circus that was my life when I was still drinking and taking drugs, it becomes very, very clear. Very, very clear. And, as you talked about too, like, I read one interview with you last night where you were talking about, getting the Tony Bourdain book at a young age and reading that and starting to get into cooking and stuff. And then you start dabbling with drugs and alcohol, and you think, okay, like this is it, man. Like I'm living the life here. You know what I mean? And I did the exact same thing. I thought it was like some kind of badge of honor or something, like this is what you did. This is how you proved yourself. Is you went and you worked 14 hours a day, and then you got out of work and you decompressed in all the self-destructive ways that you found to decompress. And that was the life. And finally as you talked about, finally you realize, yeah, this is not normal behavior. Not only is this not normal behavior, but like what still kind of comes down on me just like a sledgehammer right in the middle of my forehead is like just living in such a self-absorbed kind of way. I mean, that's how it was for me,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's good to know there are resources out there now to continue to push this thing forward, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So fast forward, you've been sober for close to 5 years, is that right?
Almost 7.
Almost 7. Okay. All right. So fast forward 7 years. What is it? what does it look like now for you? How have things continued to expound on themselves?
Well, or I have the same challenge. I face the same challenges in life, but I'm able to tackle them with a little bit more grace and ease. I still deal with unease.
Yeah.
But one of the gifts of sobriety is I'm a little bit more comfortable with being uncomfortable. I used to try and do anything to get out of feeling uncomfortable, and now I can kind of like self-medicate, not self-medicate, you know? And I can handle it. And I know I can handle it if I need to. And, you know, life is full. The plan is to not go back to drinking and drugging.
Yeah.
The plan is to keep finding things that fill life up with joy. And, you know, I've just been blessed with a lot of time with my family. I'm back to work a lot now, but I just had a really wonderful couple months with my family of bonding and closeness, and not sure what the future holds, but I'm okay with just waking up and doing the best that I can today.
Sure.
And I don't need to, you know, I cannot help what happens tomorrow, but I can give myself my best shot at what happens today.
Sure. That old control piece, you know, it's funny how, like, once you start to be able to admit how little of it you actually have, it's like, then you can just take things one day at a time instead of trying to pretend that you've got some level of control over really anything that, frankly, you just don't have, or at least I don't have.
Yeah.
So, you know, another thing that I continue, and we kind of talked about this leading up to this morning too, look at and pursue and just become a little bit more cognizant of, and you've already talked about this a little bit, is, you know, social responsibility, adulting, you know what I mean, after getting sober. And so I know one of the things that we talked about was voting, and what social responsibility comes along with voting and being an adult and being a parent and being an active member of our community.
I think right now, you know, there's a lot of people have a lot of time, and there's really big change on the horizon for there's a whole generation that has this voice, right, with like Instagram and social media, and people are using it and they're enacting change, like as a, you know, like the Black Lives Matter is a global movement, as it should be. Like I mentioned earlier, there is you know, people are calling for a change in you know, restaurant behavior, to be treated better, and there are ways to go about that. It starts with the movement, you know, of a group of people on social media, but like what I want to see is I want to see people that are in restaurants that are young people getting out and using their vote, because I think too often people, for some reason, it's easier to post things, but then when it comes time to the best way to be heard is to vote, and when it comes time to vote, people kind of don't think that they count, or that, you know, maybe there's not an immediate reaction with like posting something in comments and stuff, but like your vote counts. And, you know, it's the young people that need to get out and vote to really enact change. And if, you know, I hope in November that the young people do get out. If you're 18, it's just what an amazing time to have your first chance to vote. If you're, you know, 25 and you're too busy or whatever, just like make it happen, because that's how the voice gets heard. It's you know, it's all talk until we make change.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we just went through, well, it's not even yet, but 4 years of just, you know, bullshit, absolute bullshit. People are frustrated, and to have the coronavirus pile on top of it, I mean, and then, you know, just the police brutality and the killings of especially young black men has always been there, but now everybody has a camera in their pocket, and so now the world is seeing it, and it's just like it's this powder keg that's been waiting to explode, and it's enough is enough. And I think that the best thing we can do is get out there and vote the change that we want to see happen.
Yeah.
At least that's what I plan on doing.
Yeah. No, I think you got the right idea. Definitely. Well, so as far as anybody that tunes in that is looking to access Ben's Friends, either in person or on the internet, I know I did happen to see that, and I found this kind of ironic. There is an in-person Ben's Friends meeting at a restaurant that was literally right across the street from a place that I helped get off the ground when I was living in Asheville, North Carolina. And it's only ironic because, you know how it goes when you're opening up a brand new place. It's like every single day you work until you can't stand up anymore, and then you drink till you can't stand up anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's just funny that I don't know how long it's been going on there, but I just found it funny. I was like, I had access to something even back then that I wasn't aware of.
I don't know how long it's been around, though. It's fairly new. But the
Okay.
best thing right now with the pandemic, just go to the Ben's Friends website or check out Ben's Friends on Instagram. Each city has their own. But you can find a Zoom meeting. Every single day there's a meeting for a city or for a national meeting. And so that's the best thing you can do. And if you are in a city that doesn't have a Ben's Friends meeting and you have a group of sober food and beverage people, you can reach out to the website and talk about starting one up because they're needed.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. As far as your restaurants right now, are you guys like fully open and receiving guests? Or are y'all strictly doing outdoor dining, or?
We just opened up this week for guests.
Okay.
And we'll see how that goes. So far, so good.
Good.
So
good. And that's across the board. That's Le Pigeon, Canard, and Little Bird.
Little Bird's closed. We closed it last October.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize that. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. It's fine. Just in time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking some time to talk with me this morning. That's awesome.
Course, man.
Everybody that I've talked to on here just about different things so far, I also like to ask them this question. It's not necessarily related to sobriety. I just like to hear their response. Yeah. As a chef, what's your what's the one maybe lesser known ingredient that you feel like you always have to have, or you feel like you probably use the most in your cooking? I always like hearing people's response because it's always a little bit different and interesting.
I think that I'm going to give you two answers, and there's a ton of things, but I don't have. Of course, I'm going to be like, oh, that would be the right answer. I love to sneak miso into things, and then we make like a toasted chili oil.
Okay.
It's not too spicy, but it adds like this depth and like toastiness to food, okay. And those two things, I think they're not always on the forefront, but as an ingredient that's in the background that you don't even always know you're having, I think they add. It's all about layers of flavor and depth of flavor.
Well, I really appreciate it, Chef. I know you're a super busy guy, so thank you for setting aside a little bit of time.
Just a quick review for any listeners that may have missed it or were just looking to find out more information. If you're looking to find out more about Ben's Friends, you can do so at www.bensfriendshope.com. If you're looking to find out more about AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, you can go to aa.org. And if you're looking to find out more about Chef Rucker, you can go to Le Pigeon's website, you can go to Canard's website, and you can also find him on Instagram as well. All of these links will be available at our YouTube channel, 86 Attrition. That's EIGHTY, the number 6, and then the word attrition, ATTRITION. And if you're looking to subscribe to other episodes, or you just want to find out more about the show, you can do so at www.hospitality1to1.com, and you can find more episodes at iTunes and Spotify. Thank you again for tuning in, and I look forward to hearing from you all again in the future.